Hello, welcome to another Fandom Friday, where a member of the Rogers Public Library staff talks about something that they are a fan of. I'm Evan Day, young adult librarian, and I know it's December. Probably expecting me to do something holiday related or winter related, and I'm just going to talk about comics that I like. Specifically, I'm going to talk about Gene Luen Yang, a writer and artist that I really enjoy. We've already talked about him several times here. You may recognize some of these books. Tamara talked about this book, Superman Smashes the Klan. Takes place in 1946, a very recent book based on an old Superman radio program. He's fighting the Ku Klux Klan. What more could you ask for? Gene Luen Yang wrote the story. He did not do the artwork here. That is actually by a comic book team, and I may mispronounce their name, of Gahuru. They've done several other books as well. The Unbelievable Gwenpool on Marvel, which I like quite a bit. Just very cute, fantastic artwork there for a very serious topic. Really good. I also mentioned American Born Chinese, really the book that got me into him as an artist and a writer. He does both the artwork and the story here. It's very similar. It's the themes that you see a lot in of his work come through here. It's really three stories. It's the story of the Monkey King, as well as the story of a young boy trying to adapt to living in the United States. He's a young Chinese American boy adapting, and to a new era. And a third story, which is very, very interesting and somewhat humorous and uncomfortable. All three stories come together. I've talked about this story before. It won the Michael L. Prince Award for Best Young Adult Book, not just Best Graphic Novel, but Best Young Adult Book there, and I thought it was richly deserved. Really, it's one of the first books I refer people to when I say, hey, you want to try out comics that are more than just superheroes or something, what you might normally think of as comic books? This is what I refer people to. I've also talked about, in my basketball video, the book Dragon Hoops, about Yang's experience as a teacher at a high school that has a really high-profile, national high-profile basketball team, and learn to appreciate the story of basketball and basketball players and the history of basketball as well. So this was actually a real treat for me, actually, to enjoy this book. Now we're getting some books that I have not talked about yet, I don't believe. He did not actually draw this book, but he did tell the story. Level Up. Hey, some of you might recognize this. This is that Game Boy, an old school Game Boy. Yes, very much nostalgic here. Our main character here has a father who does not let him play video games. When his father dies, he goes all in and starts playing video games. So, whether it's therapy or not, I don't know. But he gets visited by 4 angels who tell him that his destiny is not to play video games, but to be a doctor of the digestive tract. So next thing you know, he's going to college while these angels do all his housework, and he suddenly finds himself on a career path that he wasn't really anticipating. I really like this story in that it deals with the idea of not just rebelling against what my father or what my parents wanted me to do and doing my own thing, but then sort of going back and reflecting on what it is that they really meant and why they were the way they were. Your parents weren't necessarily perfect, but they meant well, and they had reasons for why they did things. And maybe as you grow a little bit older and a little more mature, you understand why they did that. Level Up. 2 historical fiction companion novels, Boxers and Saints. If you're not aware of the Boxer Rebellion, or maybe you've heard about it but you don't know much about it, we get 2 companion stories. You don't need to read one to understand the other, but it does help give perspective, because one is the story of a girl who's Chinese at the time of the Boxer Rebellion, who becomes a Catholic Christian. She takes on a new name. She embraces Christianity, and she becomes very enamored with the person of Joan of Arc. The Boxer side of these stories is about a boy who has bad experiences with Christian missionaries in China and with Westerners in general, and becomes part of a leadership of the original Boxers, which, as you know, were people, well, if you don't know, they were people who wanted to purge foreign influence from China, and they were willing to rebel even against the Chinese authority to accomplish this rebellion. This is a more violent book and a more serious book and a much sadder book even than most of other Yang's other works. It is based, of course, in history, and history sometimes is very sad. I thought it was very informative, but also just, I really, to say I enjoyed this book isn't really fair given how sad it is, but it was very informative, and I thought you really got into the characters of two different people and how of how their minds work. Two people who you don't necessarily who are very much on opposite sides of a conflict, but you see why they come to where they were. Anyway, Boxers and Saints by Gene Luen Yang. Just wrapping up a few other things here just before I head out. If you're fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender, he was as well, and is. Therefore, he got the chance to actually write some of the stories in between Avatar and Legend of Korra. If you don't know what those are, don't worry. But it does fill in some of the gaps of story between those two series. So, with that, the Shadow here, hey, here's a superhero story. It's actually based on another Golden Age character called the Green Turtle. There's a very interesting backstory to the Green Turtle here, but basically, his story is about a hero who is a Chinese immigrant, comes from an immigrant family, and he basically gains access to an artifact with an old turtle spirit who gives him the ability to dodge bullets, basically, or have bullets whiz right past him. Anything more would probably spoil the book, but basically, it's a fun, imaginative little take on a Golden Age superhero. I'll just finish this off here. The Eternal Smile is a series of stories dealing with, I'll just describe it. Basically, the first story is about a boy who's in a medieval kingdom, but something's not quite right. Everything goes well. He fights ogres, he fights monsters, but something just doesn't seem quite right about this setting. The second story is similar. You have a character who is very much a send-up of Scrooge McDuck from Disney comics. He wants to swim, like that's what he wants to do. He just wants nothing more than to have a pile of money so big that he can swim in it, a big golden pond of money. Things aren't quite what they seem in his world either, and Grandpa Greenbacks, as the frog is called, is about to find out that what he actually thought he wanted may not be what he wanted at all. Anyway, those are a whole big stack of Gene Luen Yang books, and I don't know, I just thought about highlighting one author and artist that I really enjoy. Maybe, here's the thing, in the comics, why don't you tell me about one artist that you could probably just speak for about 9 minutes about without really any preparations? A book artist that you really wish people knew more about, an author or somebody that you just love talking about. That's if you made it to the end of this video, that's my thing. Just leave something in the comments about an author or artist that you really can go on talking about for a long time. Anyway, that's Fandom Friday for this week. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week, and have a great weekend, everybody.